Downing Street delivered a slapdown to Philip Hammond tonight after he said Britain should pay the £50 billion Brexit divorce bill even if no trade deal is struck. The PM's spokesman contradicted the Chancellor after he said it was inconceivable that the UK would not hand over money that it was obliged to pay. The comments were condemned as wrong and damaging by Brexiteers, who said they flew in the face of repeated statements from Theresa May. Mrs May's spokesman said, "Nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. That applies to the financial settlement." Boris Johnson and Michael Gove have been demanding that payments are contingent on a deal, while many Tory MPs are adamant the UK does not owe Brussels a penny. Giving evidence to the Treasury Select Committee, Mr Hammond played down the question of whether there was a legal obligation to hand over money and stressed the need for Britain to protect its credibility on the world stage. The Chancellor said it was inconceivable that the UK would not hand over money that it was obliged to pay. The Prime Minister, pictured in Downing Street today, is scrambling to get negotiations with the EU back on track after an humiliating day in Brussels. "I find it inconceivable that we would walk away from obligations that we recognise as an obligation," he said. "That's just not a credible scenario. That's not the kind of country we are, and frankly that would not make us a credible partner for future international agreements." Mr Hammond also raised questions by confirming that the Cabinet had not yet held a substantive discussion on what end state for trade relations it wanted after Brexit. He insisted it would be premature to consider the issue before there are trade talks formally underway. But No10 again contradicted Mr Hammond, saying the end state would be discussed in Cabinet by the end of the year regardless of whether progress had been made. There are only 2 more Cabinet meetings scheduled for 2017, on December the 13th and 20th. Mr Hammond's comments contrasted sharply with the position of his deputy at the Treasury, Elizabeth Truss, last month. She insisted any cash would be contingent on us securing a suitable outcome in trade negotiations with the EU. Tory MP Peter Bone told Mail Online said Mr Hammond's remarks were unbelievable and must not represent the policy of the government. "They are wrong and would damage our negotiating position," he said. "I cannot envisage any situation where we come out of the EU without a deal and still pay money. That is just not possible. The sooner we make that clear the better. If you get to the summit next week and there is no way forward, that would be the time to say, we are coming out on WTO terms, and by the way, we're not going to pay you a penny." They would be champing at the bit within a few weeks. The row came as Mrs May angrily denied caving into Brussels' demands on trade. The Prime Minister insisted no terms would be finalised until an overall deal was struck with the EU next year, and said the sides were close to making progress on the first phase of negotiations. DUP leader Arlene Foster, pictured in Belfast last night, refused to back down in a row over Brexit tonight, insisting she was just as unequivocal as Dublin about the terms of the Irish border.